and nobody with any pretensions to being hip or cool would have been seen dead listening to country music. Dylan made Nashville Skyline, Gram Parsons joined the Byrds, and they made Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And suddenly, country music developed a hip cachet that it had never had before, and Nashville Skyline was critical in that.
It's a nice little record, you know, I mean, there's a couple of nice songs on there. It's 27 minutes long, you know, you're wanting a bit more, really. Typically, they chose the worst song from the Dylan Cash sessions to put on there. Both men seem to be singing a different version of Girl from the North Country. That's the version they released. Yeah, nice instrument. I mean, you know, it's nice. The best thing about it, I think, it's the cover. It's a lovely cover, you know. But it's not. I don't think people play it that often.
The really desperate thing. I mean, I love the sound of Nashville Skyline, but it's, you know, it's an EP. You know, it's a desperately short album anyway, and there's 2 or 3 things on there that are not even B-side status. You know, it's a desperately unfinished thing. He just kind of wants to put something out, but he you know, he's in a dark room. He doesn't know really what to do or where to go.
Yet Ray Foulkes, a young promoter who with his brother was organising and booking acts for the 1969 Isle of Wight Festival, was very keen to get Dylan to travel to this small island off of Britain and for him to headline their event.
Well, we got Bob Dylan involved in the first place by pretty assiduous negotiation with his management office, with Burt Block in particular, and through a lot of pestering and a lot of very careful footwork and persuasion, with first of all being given a no, and then gradually it became a, well, it's always possible, and then he's looking at it, and then he might be interested, and so on. And as the year progressed, in 1969, it got more and more positive. And it's just perseverance, really. We were struggling throughout the year to find a superstar. We'd realised from the previous year that you were not going to attract people to the Isle of Wight to go on that ferry journey unless you got somebody pretty big. Because not only have they got to make the ferry journey, but it means that they've got to camp, because you can't get back again that day. So suddenly you've got a camping festival, which had not really been tried before in this country. And the only way that you're going to get this to work commercially was to have something big enough to bring a vast crowd over. Dylan was the only name we had in the hat that was of that calibre and was accessible. We had the Beatles, the Stones and Elvis Presley were the only other 3 giant names that would do that kind of business, you know, that would bring the people over. And Dylan was saying possible. And so we were kind of hanging our hat on Dylan all the way through the summer. And I think it became apparent by June time that the event was not going to take place unless we actually got Dylan. It was as simple as that.
At the same time, promoter Michael Lang was trying to entice Dylan to perform at another festival, which was to take place only miles from his home. Yet the media attention and the sheer size of the Woodstock Festival didn't interest Dylan. He was looking for a more modest stage and a different crowd on which to unveil his new country persona, and the Isle of Wight Festival seemed most appropriate.
I've read some very interesting accounts of that summer and how the Woodstock people who put the festival there had essentially put the festival in Dylan's backyard to try and get him to come out and play. You know, that was what that was about, and Dylan was not going to do that. He did not want to be in that kind of spotlight in America, having not worked for 3 years. And he felt that coming to England to, you know, a small island would be a medium-sized thing. It wouldn't be too big, but it would be reasonable size that would do justice to his status. So I think that was his thinking, perhaps. And then there was the attraction of coming to see the home of Tennyson and Queen Victoria and all the things that we could lay on, you know, and a holiday with his family. So, you know, the things combined and gelled in a way that suited him.
Yet the day of the performance did not run smoothly, and Dylan was famously late on stage. Aronowitz, who'd arrived on the island with Dylan, was there to chronicle the tensions.
He was getting antsier and antsier because the band was supposed to go on at a certain time, and he was supposed to go on at a certain time, and the time was just, nothing was happening. And nothing was happening because Jonathan, the road manager for the band, said that the sound system was not working properly. And he was working on it to fix it. Now the sound system had been working properly up until that point. He keeps sending me back and forth to holler at them to get the thing going. And he's really getting mad and hollering and, you know, cursing. And suddenly, you know, I'm in the position between the two of them, and I'm getting stiffed by the band and by the Jonathan, the road manager, and you know, he's still working on fixing the sound system, and he won't tell me what's wrong with the sound system that he's fixing. And he never did tell me what was wrong with the sound system, you know. So sometimes I've wondered whether they did that deliberately to screw Bob up.
I'm surprised that Aronowitz is saying that the lateness of Dylan going on was because the sound system was broken. There was nothing of the sort. There are a number of reasons. There's no one reason, but there are a number of reasons that accumulated to cause the problem. The main reason was the press. We had a press arena in front of the stage, and the press arena was also used as a VIP arena. So we had all manner of stars arriving. Now, our press people were perhaps a bit naive in the way they handled it, but after Richie Havens had been on, before the band went on, we cleared the press arena and reissued all the tickets. So that caused a bit of delay in doing that, obviously. Secondly, the band went on. I think that they went on for longer than we'd expected. And I think they were determined to do a full hour or, you know, quite a large set. And I suppose thirdly, there was never a definite timetable when Dylan was going to go on. And Dylan was going to close the show. Nobody was coming on after Dylan. And we didn't want to close the show at 9 o'clock and then everybody's suddenly left high and dry without any more entertainment. So we wanted it to be fairly late anyway. So the lateness probably only amounted to about an hour. So instead of going on at 10 o'clock, he went on at 11 o'clock or something like that, you know. It seemed like an age, but it wasn't really that long, and these things get exaggerated over time.
Dylan's late appearance on stage was only the first problem. His new musical approach and changed image confused fans, and the short performance would later be criticised by the press and public alike.
Certainly his heart doesn't really seem to have been in it. He appeared in this bizarre white suit, looking more like a door-to-door Bible salesman than a rock and roll star. And it was a very perfunctory performance, barely lasted an hour. Didn't play many of the old songs. Those he did, he tended to mangle. And it was the first time we'd seen him in Britain for 3 years, and it was a very disappointing performance.
Reeling from the critical reaction to the Isle of Wight performance, Dylan again looked to changing his surroundings to find inspiration. This time, however, he chose to return to the city in which he'd made his name, and in 1970 once again moved to Greenwich Village. Almost immediately, he went to work on a new album, one which would involve covers, live recordings and studio work in both New York and Tennessee. Ron Cornelius, a guitarist who would continue to play with Dylan, was recruited to add elements to the record in Nashville after the initial New York sessions.
On Self-Portrait, that was my real entrance with my guitar. And Dylan was in New York, or wherever he was. Who knows where he was. I just went in there, Charlie Daniels and I both went in there, and we put our parts where they go. That album was made over a period of months, and once they had the basic tracks cut,